Grand Rising, good people. Grand Rising. Great day.
Sick.
It is a great day. It is already a great day. I'm going to tell you why it's already a great day. I woke up, I had a nice ritual. I put some good meditation music on in the background. I got on my vibration plate. I stretched. I guess you could say I did a little meditation, and I had the candles burning. Man, it was a great morning ritual, a great AM ritual for sure. So it's finna be a great day. It's already in the making. It's already in the making. Let me turn this music off. But Grand Rising to all, man. Hopefully everybody had a great night's rest. We got a lot to discuss. We'll probably get out of here around the same time that we did yesterday, because I got to get back to Jersey for a little bit. Well, I can't be telling y'all when I'm traveling and whatnot. But y'all, of course, y'all, the fam can, but you never know who's listening. But let's get right to it. Shout out to Big Bro Finn tapping in early as always. We may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to one human race. Kofi Annan. Simple. I love the simple philosophy. Shout out to you, Big Bro. The world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but because the silence of good people. Napoleon? Woo! Damn, okay, Napoleon. I was not expecting that from Napoleon. The world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of good people. That's something maybe for all of us to think about. And of course, as you are joining, please make sure that you like. We got to boost that algorithm, get as many different people, as many different perspectives, as many different experiences in the building as possible. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. That's the God connection. Come on, baby. All right, let's see who else we got in the building. Shout out to Michelle. Grand Rising, Michelle. Hope all is well. Shout out to Bubbles in the building. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing good. El Relly in the building. Happy Wednesday, all. Phyllis in the building. Good morning, everyone. Phyllis in the building. Bright and early today, too. Man, Phyllis is I keep telling you're a real one. 5 a.m. Another 5 a.m. A lot of y'all may not know what that's from. I should show y'all the old OG video so I can let y'all know exactly what OG means. But we recorded a video a long time ago, and this maybe like 2013, and I was trying to get back to the NFL. I think I was between the Colts and the Giants, and we recorded this video, and it started off another 5 a.m. and it showed me waking up. So that just made me think about it. But moving on, we're not going to spend too much time on that. Shout out to Terry in the building. Cheers to the musicians that sang about stolen elections. Terry, send that to me. Send that link to me. I don't think I saw that. Was that something at the Grammys? I may have missed that. Put the link, send the link in the chat if you can, if you don't mind. Cheers to the musicians that sang against the terrorism. Okay. All right. Well, I'm feeling the energy. Shout out to my brother Andy. The legend himself. Good morning. With the fire Napoleon quote, right, Andy? I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, yo, that kind of threw me off. I didn't know that was a Napoleon kind of quote. I didn't know that was the energy that he was on. I just watched, BK had me just watch the Napoleon movie. I think it's on Apple TV. I recommend it. But they left out a lot. They left out the whole him versus Haiti. I guess they didn't want to show that, huh? Shout out to Big Bro Robert in the building. Good morning on this rainy day. I don't know, Miami. The water's looking clear. The sun is shining. It didn't get over the building yet, but maybe in an hour or so, it'll be over the building. So y'all see that. But yeah. Let me stop. Let me stop rubbing it in. Shout out to big bro Steve in the building. If you do not control the enemy will control you. Simple, plain, and direct. I love it. Miyamoto Musashi. I think I did pretty good on that one. All right, let's keep it moving. We got D Hopkins in the building. Shout out to D Hopkins. Good morning. My first time tuning in. Everybody say what's up to D Hopkins. It's her first time tuning in. Welcome to the family. We're going to have some great conversations. This is what we do here. We just have great conversations, no different than if we were in a big group chat or sitting down at the dinner table together. We just chop it up. That's what we do. So shout out to you for tapping in for the first time. Shout out to Unc in the building. Hopefully it'll be your first. Hopefully you'll come back for a second date. That's a fact. Come on, Unc. Once we get him on the first, you know what we do. Once you all you need is that first date, Unc. All you need is that first date, Unc. We're going to get him back. Oh, man. Shout out to D. All right, so let's get to it. So the first thing that I wanted to show y'all, interesting post. Mama Lay, I think, sent this one over. This was something that caught me completely off guard. I was like, wait, with the Epstein files? So we're going to get into very quickly something that I saw in the Epstein, or something that this gentleman shared about the Epstein files that I went and looked. And by the way, did y'all know that you can go check out the Epstein files? Like before yesterday, I didn't even know exactly how. I never really tried to go into it. I was mostly using ChatGPT until ChatGPT gave me some bad information yesterday. And then I went on Google and it was actually regarding this. So I went on ChatGPT and I said, was there anything with Jeffrey Epstein and the pandemic? Because this is what this Instagram post was about. I said, did anything in the Epstein files have Jeffrey Epstein with the pandemic? They said, no. ChatGPT kept saying no. Then I asked Google and Google said, yeah. And they showed me the files. They showed me the email. They gave me a link. And then I was able to search pandemic in the search on the official government website. So then I went back to ChatGPT and was like, bruh, like I copied and pasted what Google gave me. And ChatGPT started making excuses talking about, well, when you said the pandemic, a lot of people have been trying to draw connections, and just because they're doing pandemic or having conversations about pandemics in 2015, that doesn't mean that yo, for real. So we going back and forth. I'm like, bro, that's extremely, like I said, you could have just said that, but don't say no. So I don't know, neither here nor there. I think I'm moving on to this Google AI. Maybe I'm a big Google and Grok for now. ChatGPT, y'all disappointed me, but let's get into the actual video that I was talking about. All right, let me share the screen real quick. Boom. All right, so let's take a look.
Subject line, prepare for pandemics. Here's the second most important email from the Epstein files. Subject line, prepare for pandemics. Written on March 19th, 2015. In that email it says, let's discuss next steps. For example, how to involve the World Health Organization. I hope we can pull this off. Then in 2019 came Event 201, a simulation of a global pandemic to see how each organization should react, like how to counter the anti-vaxxers and the spread of misinformation. That was sponsored by Bill Gates, by the way. And in early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, one of the biggest scams in modern history. Now, we know that Bill Gates and Epstein were close because in another email, Gates is asking Epstein to give him antibiotics to slip to his then-wife Melinda because he may have given her STDs that he caught on Epstein Island.
Apparently, Jeffrey wrote an email to himself.
What? And then they gave that guy the mandate to push vaccines on all of us. And to add insult to injury, we the people have to watch his ass walk freely and lecture us on climate change at the World Economic Forum. Now, this is not a moment for us to tell the people who didn't believe us, I told you so. It's a moment for all of us to come together and push back against these evil, deceptive, miserable rats.
All right, so that's what made me start going into looking at what I'm getting ready to show y'all. Hold on. So this is what I looked at. And I'm like, damn, they're preparing for a pandemic. Now, even though these emails may show that they were doing pandemic planning. As you can see in the subject line right here, it says preparing for pandemic. And then there's a bunch of other emails. Can I show them? Dang, I kind of wanted to show y'all exactly how to go about searching it, but you just go to the government website. If you ask Google, what's the website to look at the Epstein files, all you have to do is let them know that you're over 18 and maybe click one other thing, and then you could search for whatever in the files. Obviously, they're redacted in these, but at least it'll give you some things to search or give you a little, I don't know what exactly you're looking for, but the takeaway for me wasn't necessarily that this was a planned pandemic, even though I think it was. The takeaway for me regarding these emails with Jeffrey Epstein being involved in these conversations was the only qualification that you need to have yourself presented as an expert in a particular area. Like, I don't know if y'all remember when the pandemic first started happening, Bill Gates it seemed like he was the expert on all this. It seemed like he was the one who was speaking up and telling us about when we can expect a vaccine and it's like, whoa, is this something like what made Bill Gates? Like, did Bill Gates go to some sort of infectious disease? Like, did he have a fellowship in infectious disease? Like, what exactly qualified him to be an expert in this area? So I was confused by it. It would have been nice to know that they actually did all these preparations or had these type of conversations beforehand, but perhaps why they don't expose these type of things happening is because they know that we can look at who's sponsoring them. Follow the money, right? Why is Bill Gates or Jeffrey Epstein involved in pandemic preparation? And it makes us think that there's a bigger play, and it makes us also wonder, when you have people where the only qualification is money to get into a lot of these rooms and have influence over a lot of these people, are we really doing what's in the best interest of the people? Now, when I ask that, it's kind of, a sarcastic question. Not really expecting y'all to answer. Definitely rhetorical, because obviously we know this. We know that they're not doing things in our best interest, and it makes us wonder. So this is the only reason why I'm presenting this. So the next time when there's a pandemic happening, or the next time when our government's telling us one thing that we're supposed to just believe, just because somebody in a suit and tie jumped up on front of the screen on one of our mainstream news outlets and told us that it was true, we're going to believe Anthony Fauci, who I believe didn't have any infectious disease training, but now he's the #1 infectious disease expert when it comes to the pandemic. So all of these things, them being connected, for me, it's just another instance or another example that the only qualification that you need in anything in this world is to have some sort of money leverage that ultimately adds up to some sort of power. So just wanted to share that very quickly. Michelle said they had a virtual pandemic event before the actual event. Big Bro Steve said they've had access to all these files and more, and there's been no accountability. Money and power provides these elites a whole different set of rules. Nothing they say can be trusted. And this is why when we talk about the Super Bowl and sports and entertainment, this is why it's so important, because typically this has been used to serve as a distraction. But now, because we have access to this information and people are showing interest, and now we're not just relying on mainstream news outlets to tell us what we should and should not be concerned with. Now we have people raising these questions, connecting these dots that typically, the people that are running the mainstream news outlets would never allow to be exposed. We never had access to this. So even maybe this is a time to recognize even more grace that we have to give to our parents, because think about how they're growing up. They're growing up. They didn't have the internet. They couldn't just Google anything. They couldn't just access files or a link to a file just by going on some sort of AI component or platform. So there is a certain level of grace, and even more so, but the grace comes from us. Now, for our parents, there needs to also be a little bit of grace in understanding that, hey, we may have been fooled, a lot when it comes to how we see the world. And that type of manipulation is probably why so many more older folks thought the way that they thought about the shot and the pandemic compared to a lot of younger folks. It's not to place blame anywhere. It's just understanding the system, understanding that we've all been fooled, manipulated, indoctrinated in one way or another. And it largely shapes the way that we think about a lot of these big moment issues. So yeah, I'm with you, big bro. I'm with you. All right, so let's keep it moving. Oh, wait, all right, so Mama Lay said Helena uses an AI called Claude. I'm going to check that one out. Let's check that one out, Claude, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Let's check that one out. Finn said, shout out to you, Mama Lay. Always great seeing you in the chat. So Finn wrote, the chef on the island just had a restaurant in New York called Cannibals. That's all I need to, oh, man. That's wild. All right. Unc said, we may not call it the metrics. In reality, we call it America, or the matrix. In reality, we call it America, but it's just the same. We are being manipulated by billionaires to follow a script that we follow religiously, literally religiously. Yeah, it's, Claude, Andy said Claude is great for programming, I hear. But yeah, I'm with you, Unc. I'm with you, Unc. Oh, so y'all already know about it. Hold up, y'all already know about it. All right, well, in that case, we moving on to Claude. But yeah, Unc, this is all just a play. When we take a step back and we realize it's almost like playing chess. Have you ever played against somebody in chess? And well, if you have, then you know, like different people. Some people think about the next move. Some people think about the 2 moves ahead. Some people think 3, 4, 5. The better you are, the more moves ahead. Like you're able to anticipate what they're going to do based on what you're doing and the different options. So even if they don't make the exact move or they're going to make that move, you know, maybe, okay, they're going to choose from about maybe 3 or 4 different moves that they're going to have. And I have to make sure that I have an answer for that move. And then when I do that, they're probably going to do that. And this is how the chess mind works. So when you take a step back and look at our country and don't just get too caught up being locked in on, oh, look at Bad Bunny. He's gay. He wears dresses. I don't know, whatever people were thinking. And you turn it into something maybe that it wasn't. Now, maybe I'm not saying that all these things aren't legit. I'm not saying that, oh, well, Bad Bunny, because he, whatever your thoughts are on it, I don't even want to get into that convo, even though we will in a little bit, because Nick Fuentes had a follow-up that I want y'all to check out that I was laughing at. But when we take a step back and look at all these things, we can see like, oh, it's not like the Super Bowl's winning. They wanted to create some sort of controversy. That's why they had Bad Bunny there, because they knew that it would stoke people's emotions with Donald Trump in the context of everything that we know with ICE going on. And that was the number one thing that Donald Trump was pushing when he was running for, right? We're going to deport the migrants, or one of the main things, definitely at the top of the list. So therefore, you bring on Bad Bunny. Then you got Turning Point USA. They're reacting to it and saying like, okay, that's good. Do you think Turning Point USA is upset that Bad Bunny was performing? If if there was a non-Bad Bunny performer, let's say that it was somebody that conservatives would be proud of, right? Then Turning Point USA would not be able to host their halftime event. They're happy that Bad Bunny was performing, because now that gives them the opportunity to put something up of their own, and they're going to say, oh, we're going to do it next year and the following year. Now they have their own halftime show. While we're looking at it like, oh, no, we're just supporting Turning Point USA. They're just doing it because they love America. They love Americans. No, dummy. They're doing things just the same way that the Super Bowl is doing things, just the same way that mainstream news outlets are doing it. They're doing it because they want to turn a profit. That's it. That's how all this stuff works. And if we take a step back, we can see like, oh, okay, this is just WWE. This side does something because if we ever actually find a solution, who's going to actually lose money? That's like when you go into a negotiation, or if you go into trying to understand a situation, why certain people want certain things to happen. Well, I think we should go this route. I think we should go this route. Then you start to peel the onion back and you start to ask questions like, well, who benefits from this decision? Who benefits from this? Who benefits from us living in chaos? Who benefits from us being peaceful? Who loses things from us being peaceful? Who loses power and leverage? The political parties. Who are the political parties working for? The elites. So the elites lose power when we aren't fighting each other, aren't hating each other, aren't looking at this as a civil war between the left and the right. They lose. They win when we do look at it like that. So that's just about taking a step back. I know that I'm preaching to the choir when it comes to a lot of this stuff, but that's kind of just my understanding on it. It's literally what Finn just wrote. While you're arguing over crumbs, they're walking off with the bakery. That's exactly what I'm saying. So hold on. What was the next one that we're going to get into? All right. So we're going to go into this Nick video. I wanted y'all to take a look at it because Nick followed up on his take with Super Bowl. I thought it was funny. We're not going to spend too much time on it. I'm actually going to put it. I don't want to. I feel like it's disrespectful when you put somebody's video in 1.5 or 2x speed when you're reviewing it on this show. But we'll see. We'll see. If it gets too drawn out, that's what we'll do. But take a listen to this. I thought it was funny. I think y'all will enjoy it. Maybe not. Shout out to where's my boy Critical Thinking? Now every time I put on Nick, I think of Critical. All right.
What I had to say about this. Hey, look, I liked the halftime show. I liked Bad Bunny. I thought it was fun. I thought it was catchy. I thought it was lighthearted. I liked it. Everyone hated me for saying that. Thermonuclear meltdown over that take. People said I sold out for liking a show. Meanwhile, at the Turning Point halftime show, that's your alternative. That's the alternative. I just want to kiss my fish. Everyone said it sounded like he said kiss my fish. I just want to catch my fish, hug my dog, drink my beer. And I'm watching this on Sunday. See, this is why I was so mad. This is why I was so mad. We're going to keep coming back here like 100 fucking times. This is never over. This is why I was so mad. Because I just I don't like that whole presentation. I mean, it really made me sick to my stomach. And I saw some of these conservative accounts comparing the two, and they said, here was the Bad Bunny halftime show, and it's twerking asses, and it's brown and black people, and it's degeneracy. And then they showed the clip from Turning Point, and they said, look at this wholesome chungus who just wants to drink his beer. And I'm like, I hate that guy. You want to know why? Because I hate weakness. I absolutely hate weakness. And I hate weakness coming from white people. Because here is what I saw in the two halftime shows. From the brown and black people, they are planting a flag. They're young. They're energetic. They're proud. They're confident. And they want everybody to know. The black people, the brown people, whether you like it or not, they're here. The barbarians are in the gates. They are here. They are outnumbering us in our country, in the world. They are proud. They are confident. They are young. They are dancing. They're playing their music. They are vivacious. They're having kids. And they are planting a flag. And their message, which we saw on Sunday, was, we are here. This is our country. Deal with it. And that was the message, unequivocally. That was the low-angle shot. It was a low-angle shot looking up at Bad Bunny and all the Latinos with their flags saying, love is stronger than hate. This is our country. This is our culture. We're here, and we're not going anywhere. And that's a muscular, strong message, and it conveys vitality. And there's no question that they have a future. Then I watched the Turning Point halftime show, your all-American halftime show, your safe space for white cucks, your safe space for white losers. And all the white people retreated to some stage in Atlanta, apparently, And they had a cry. They had a good cry about how we're all dying. And some pathetic white doofus got up on the stage and said, I just want... He's literally crying. You gonna cry, you fucking pussy?
All right, before we get into, I don't even know what cursing is after that. This is what I was talking about. And see, this is why victimhood is so prevalent, I believe, in America. Because both sides use it. Both sides use it. You'll have the right use it against the left when we're complaining, or when the left is complaining. We're all everything, right? So the right will complain about the left using it, whether it's with, I don't know, DEI, or complaining about racism. It could be some of the LGBTQ stuff, could be the whatever woke, things that they'll throw that label on. But now you see it flipped. And it's almost like the whole, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stop complaining, all that type of stuff, right? The energy is always good when it's one side. And it seems like people are content with calling other people victims when they're in their power position, but then you see it flip the other way when the shoe's on the other foot, when you feel like, oh, now you're a victim. Now I can't drink my beer. Now I can't do this. I can't do that. Now you got a whole bunch of country music playing, and people complaining about life, acting like life is the worst thing in the world, acting like America is the worst thing in the world. And it's the same thing on both sides. Everybody's appealing to the victimhood and the emotions of their group. Life is not fair, or America's not fair. Now America's not fair for the Midwest white guy who just wants to drink his beer and catch his fish. Now something in America is preventing you from being able to do that. This is the same thing with when it comes to the victimhood, whether it's black people, whether it's whatever other group that Democrats are trying to appeal to. It's the very same thing. And the reason why I played that clip is because I'm glad that Nick called it out, because it's the exact same thing I think on Monday that I said this. When I was talking about the halftime show, and I said, let's just be real, man, why people are upset when it comes to the halftime show. People are upset because the last few years it hasn't been white people in the show. Now, I'm not saying people have the right to be upset at anything that they want, but when you're presenting it as anything other than that, then in my opinion, it's going to lead to just the grift type victimhood energy of Turning Point USA, who they don't care. They're glad. They hope Jay-Z chooses the next 10 Super Bowl performances, and they hope that they're as ghetto, ratchet, whatever else category they want to use to throw it in. They hope that. They don't care about, oh, well, this is wrong to be presented to America. No, they only care about being able to have an alternative that's going to make them bigger. This is what all these groups do. We already had this conversation. So we'll move on after that. We shall move on after that. All right. So the next video is a video that, based on all these Iran talks, and I remember, hold on, let me get Nick off the screen. All right. So hold on, let me make sure I'm not catching it. Oh, so some of y'all didn't watch either show. Some of y'all didn't watch either show, but hold on. Who wrote that? You gonna cry? Hold on. Yeah, Samira, that's the energy I'm on, like across the board. This is like across the board. If I ever come across sounding like a victim, y'all need to address that. If I ever come across to y'all sounding like a victim, sounding like something is happening to me, and me focusing on something more externally that I have no control of, more than internally the things that I have control of. If you ever hear me complaining, crying, playing this victim card, call me out on it. Please, I'm asking you. That's never the energy that I want to be on. All right, so moving on. Yeah, nobody wants to hear all that crying. All right, so with everything going on with Iran, and I remember last year, there were a whole lot of people, whole lot of conservatives, all the neocons jumped out the window, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin. They were all celebrating like, look, Iran, y'all thought that it was going to be something bigger than it is. We just went in there, quick mission, destroyed their nuclear sites, and that was that. We're America. This is what we do. A year later, we're in the same position, now on the brink of going to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. This is the exact position that we were. Well, I mean, you could say it's even worse now. It's even worse. They're not budging. Iran is not budging. And can you blame them? Can you blame Iran? Could you imagine having a bunch of neighbors, or let's say you have a neighbor. You have a neighbor who you don't get along with, and they keep messing with you. They keep doing certain things to your property. They keep trying to intimidate you. They keep bringing all their family that lives on the other side of town over to intimidate you. All these different things. They keep violating you. They already took some of your other neighbors' land. They've already been doing weird stuff to your neighbors. Do you think that it's okay for them to be allowed to have guns, but you can only have a knife? That's the rules of the town. That's what the mayor comes in. The mayor comes in and says, hey, you can only have guns. You can only have knives. How can an Iranian leader turn to their country and be okay telling their people, yeah, we signed a deal. This is the deal. Even though Israel has nuclear weapons, even though Israel has missiles, even though Israel's committing a genocide, even though Israel has ethnically cleansed Palestine, even though Israel has bombed a lot of the countries around us, we gave up our missiles. We gave up developing uranium for the nuclear weapons. We gave up, what is it called in Black Panther? What was I forget the stone, and not the stone, whatever they had. Yeah, we gave it up. Why would you ever do that? It's not realistic to me at all. But the reason why I wanted to show this video that we're getting ready to watch is because how did we get here? We all hear, well, this group has the right to this land. This group has the right to this land. How did we get to this position? And I think going through this video that I only watched the first couple minutes of, I think it's going to put a lot of things in perspective for us. I think it's going to, when we look at that situation that's occurring, Israel, Palestine, or everything over there, or perhaps even how our country was developed, I think this will give us some perspective, give us some understanding, and hopefully give us more of an insight on actually what has happened in that particular place in the world. So let me pull this up. Do I already have it up? Let me pull this. And shout out to Forgotten. No, this is the Elephants in the Room. Yeah, this is Ken LaCourte. We've already watched Ken before. So we'll go through this video. Maybe not make it through the entire thing, but we'll try to go through as much as possible. So how did we get here? Do me a favor, make sure that y'all like. All right, let's see. HCB. Shout out to HCB. All right.
Steal Palestine. Did Jews steal Palestine? It's a conflict that so many people argue about, and I've heard activists on both sides make statements that just sounded off. But I realized that I didn't really understand the history of how it began. And when you hear the arguments about it, they all have this element of, yes, but before that, this happened. So it's a long history, and it's understandable to be confused. I decided to start at the beginning of recorded human history and see what I could learn. I'm Ken LaCourte. My deal here is that I find a question I find interesting, research it, and do my best to present it to you as fairly as I can manage. And this is one of the most complicated and argued over stories in human history. So here's what I learned about how both Jews and Arabs came to believe that the world's most contested real estate is rightfully theirs. I also tried hard to make it digestible without dumbing it down, and I really believe that within 20 minutes, you're going to be a lot smarter about this whole thing. We'll start with the very beginning, that saw a lot of players from history converge into one place. Then we'll look at Britain's impossible balancing act after World War I, a history of partition, war, and displacement that followed, and how a Palestinian identity was born. So let's start as close to the beginning as we can. The land that we now call Israel, or Palestine, has been inhabited for over 10,000 years. Archaeological evidence shows hunter-gatherers living there in the Stone Age, followed by some of the world's first agriculture settlements. Jericho, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth, was founded around 9000 BC. These weren't nations or kingdoms. They were more like scattered communities. By the Bronze Age, around 3000 BC, the land was called Canaan. It was a patchwork of city-states and various peoples. Egyptians, Hittites, Assyrians, and Babylonians, they all fought for control of it because of its trade routes. By around 1200 BC, the Bronze Age collapsed and the political map was once again redrawn. Out of that chaos, sometime around 1000 BC, Hebrew tribes emerged in the hill country of Canaan and began forming their own kingdoms. King David made Jerusalem his capital, and his son Solomon built the first temple there. That's how the city became sacred for Jews. But Jewish rule didn't last long. Their kingdoms fell, and they were exiled. Persia took over next and let the Jews return and rebuild. Then came the Greeks, the Romans, then the Byzantines. Each empire left behind language, culture, and architecture. After crushing two major Jewish revolts, the Romans renamed the province from Judea to Syria-Palestina. Some historians say it was intended as an insult, meant to erase the Jewish identity. But in any event, Jewish sovereignty essentially ended there for almost 2,000 years.
All right, very quickly. And even like things that I pay attention to, I don't know about y'all, but I pay attention to like different images that they're using because all this imagery is important as well. Like when they're showing different things, I think he may have already mentioned King David and stuff. And it's like, bro, you're just bringing up pictures. I don't know if that's what King David looked like. I don't know if that's what the people in that region look like. So we all have to understand that even when we're looking at a lot of this history, it's like we have to decipher between the imagery of all this to the point where we can just, it's like naturally, it just becomes like, like a part of our, it's like subconsciously, we won't even be realizing that the information that we're getting is shaping our minds, shaping our understanding of this particular region, no different than the imagery that people use to create the image of Jesus. So I think we have to be well aware of this. And another thing that stands out to me so far is if we know that there were people here much longer than 3,000 years ago, or it really doesn't even matter. And I think, I think Negative brought up the point that all land is stolen. But when we look at a lot of this land, can you imagine all the people that inhabited this land, all of the people that were controlling this land, and that there's one group that now came out and said that doesn't even show that they're actually from the area, but now they're claiming that this is their land. They got an entire country just based on a book saying that they're entitled to some land that God said, and it doesn't even say them, but they pretty much just used this book. They turned a couple sentences, they turned their interpretation of a couple sentences into a country. Now, evil, good, kind of impressive. I think that it's evil, for a lot of these things that they're doing with the state of Israel. But that's just my interpretation of it. That's my perspective of it. But the fact that you were able to take an interpretation of a couple sentences and turning it into a country, that says a lot. And now I want to know why. How were you able to leverage that? How were you able to do all these different things? And we'll keep going. We'll keep going with the video. I want to drag it out.
600s, Muslim armies came in, bringing the Arabic language and Islamic rule. Jerusalem gained the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which are holy to Muslims as the site of Muhammad's night journey. For centuries, Islam defined the region with small groups of Christians and Jews still in the mix. Then came the Christian Crusaders, who captured Jerusalem and slaughtered thousands, only to lose it again to Saladin. The Ottomans took it over in the early 1500s and ruled it for the next 400 years. By the 1800s, the Holy Land was really a little corner of the Ottoman Empire. It was rural, poor, mostly Arab. It was roughly 80 to 95% Muslim, with small Christian and Jewish communities. There was no independent Palestine, no Jewish state, and no national borders, just one big empire that was starting to have trouble. In 1915, at the beginning of World War I, Britain encouraged the Arabs to rise up against the Turks to help defeat the crumbling Ottoman Empire, and promised to back their independence after the war. Actually, during the war, Britain promised the same land to 3 different groups: Arabs, French, and Jews. Soon, though, the Ottoman Empire did fall apart, and Britain took over during the war. For Britain, it would turn out to be an impossible balancing act. And in 1917, they made perhaps the most famous promise of all, the Balfour Declaration. It pledged support for a national home for the Jewish people. It also vowed to protect the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities. Now, Britain had various political reasons to do it, and the declaration excited Zionists, and it horrified local Arabs. For the first time, a major power publicly promised the area to one group, and in doing so, it came face to face with an unsolvable problem. The League of Nations gave Britain the mandate to govern the land and to turn that vague national home into reality while somehow keeping Arab majorities calm. The Jewish National Fund and other Zionist groups began buying tracts of land in Ottoman and later British Palestine. Now, they did it legally according to Ottoman and later British law. They often bought the land from absentee Arabs or Ottoman landlords, and they paid a lot of money for it. They called it aliyah, literally ascent, and it meant waves of immigrants who built new towns, including Tel Aviv. But for the Arabs already living there, the sight of newcomers buying land, fencing it off, and setting up self-contained settlements was frightening. The sales were legit. Money was paid, deeds were signed, but to the local farmers, it being legal was well beside the point. For centuries, these Arab families had worked the same plots under a patchwork of Ottoman laws that weren't very clear on ownership versus use. Land was tied to your lineage, not paperwork. If your grandfather and your father plowed and planted it, it was yours, no matter whose name was on some record. So when wealthy absentee landlords sold those same fields to Jewish people, peasants realized they were now living on land someone else legally owned. They didn't see it as a real estate transaction. They saw foreign investors using foreign rules to take the ground beneath their feet.
You know what I'm thinking? It's almost like with a lot of these atrocities that we've seen throughout the world in history, it's usually the elites selling their own people out. So these elites that owned all this land, what did they do? They sold it legally. Like any Jewish people, if they want to come in and buy land and they want to fence it off, they have the ability to do that. They sold them the land. And then the people, right? We the people then get upset because it's like, yo, you're selling all of our land. Well, yeah, you didn't own it. It wasn't official. And this is the same thing that we see happening in America. When we look at these migrants coming in, when we look at Donald Trump not wanting to deport anybody because, oh, well, we're going to give them H-1B visas because Americans are too dumb to do the jobs in Silicon Valley. So we need to bring in Indians, and nobody wants to pick or work on these farms, work in agriculture. So therefore, we're going to deport them, but then bring them back in on H-1B visas. Migrants are here because the elites want them here. Migrants are here because the elites want them here. The elites are never going to have their politicians, their representatives say that. They're not going to have their sales reps talk bad about their product. They're going to present it in whatever way they need to present it in order to get us to buy into it or look the other way. So it's the same thing. Even when you look at slavery, even if with the transatlantic slave trade, I don't believe that the story happened how they tell it, but whatever. Let's look at the transatlantic slave trade. Elites, what did they sell out their own people, right? A lot of people sold out their own people. Oh, we got these prisoners. All right, y'all could take them. How much you got for them? A lot of these situations are, look at what happens right now with Black culture. What are all the things that we complain? Like you see different people selling out and I'll spread poison to the community if it means me making some money. I don't care who I got to take the check from. I'll be Jay-Z. You could put me on you can advertise me as a, hey, I'm building the Barclays Center. So that way the people in the community, they'll be okay with it. Their representatives will vote for it to go through. Even though I'm pretty much giving up my home because they got to knock it down all these things. They build up the Barclays. Now what else are they going to build up? Now they're going to gentrify it. Now they're going to make it unaffordable for we the people. And then we find out that Jay-Z owns a percentage of a percentage. He owns like point something percent of 1%, like, or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. He invested, I believe, $1 million and then walked away with like 500,000, just walked away from it. He was just used. He was just used. This is a reoccurring thing when it comes to a lot of these nations. When we sit back and wonder, like, yo, how could this have happened? How could this? It's funny how a lot of times it's like damn near the people, the elites, they're doing it to us, but just not presenting it that way because they want to throw rocks and hide their hands. Let's keep it going.
Time, what looked to Zionists like progress, draining swamps, building roads, planting orchards, looked to Arabs like encroachment. So Britain found itself trapped between two truths. Jews believed their land purchases and development proved legitimacy. Arabs believed their continuous presence and cultivation did. The British tried to honor both, and, no surprise, they managed to make everyone unhappy. Tensions erupted again and again. In 1920, 1929, rumors that Jews were trying to take over the Muslim holy sites sparked riots that left hundreds of people dead. By the mid-1930s, those clashes had evolved into the Arab Revolt, an insurgency aimed at halting Jewish immigration and forcing Britain out. Britain crushed the revolt brutally, killing thousands, exiling the leaders and leaving the Arab side without a leader right before another world war, and also realizing that they just couldn't reconcile the two sides. In 1937, the British Peel Commission proposed a fix. Partition Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Jews accepted it reluctantly, the Arabs rejected it. By 1939, as Hitler rose in Europe, Britain issued a white paper limiting Jewish immigration and promising an Arab-majority state within 10 years. It was a total reversal of their Balfour Pledge. Then,
and I want to just be very clear, and I actually just looked it up because he didn't cover it, but it kind of, I didn't want it to be presented the wrong way or misrepresented, where Jewish people, I believe they owned about 5, 6, somewhere between 5 and 7% they purchased. So I don't want to make it seem like whether y'all thought like, oh, they bought all this land. No, it was, I think that they bought around 5 to 7%. Let me double check on this. Hold on. Let me look at it again. Before the establishment of Israel in 1948, Jewish individuals and organizations legally purchased and owned approximately 5.8 to 7% of the total land in mandatory Palestine. All right, let's keep it going. I just wanted to make sure because he didn't say a number, so he kind of left it out there for speculation.
came World War II. 6 million Jews were murdered in Europe while British ships turned away Jewish refugees at Palestine's ports. Underground Zionist groups began attacking British targets, and by 1947, exhausted and broke, Britain had had enough. They handed the entire problem to the UN and walked away. After 3 decades of ruling Palestine, the empire that once dominated the world couldn't control that sliver of land. Hey, I researched this carefully, but I'm not a Middle East scholar, and I'm trying to unpack thousands of years of history in a fairly short video. So I'm going to leave stuff out. Now, nevertheless, if I make a mistake or if I leave out something super important, let me know and I'll address it in the comments. I also want to take a quick break to talk about how the media twists the truth.
Okay.
Not by what they say, but by what they leave out. Think about it. If a reporter makes something up, they'll be fired. Outright lies are rare. But leave out one key fact, skip a crucial quote, and suddenly the truth bends. It's like watching a movie with half the scenes missing. You can walk out thinking the hero's a villain. That's where today's sponsor, Ground News, comes in. They collect and compare stories from over 50,000 sources, showing how the same event is framed across the political spectrum. You see who covers what and who ignores it. And with one click, you can see what they call blind spots. Stories that get covered more by one side than the other. Take this story out of Montana. A Democrat running for city commissioner had left voicemails with Senator Tim Sheehy.
Let me get back to the video. I don't feel like looking at all this.
To settle everything. The Assembly voted to, at least in theory, literally scan the QR code here. I think it's come up with a simple solution, at least in theory. On November 29, 1947, the General Assembly voted to partition Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab, with Jerusalem set aside as an international city. That was supposed to settle everything. Again. The Jewish state would get about 55% of the land, even though Jews made up only about 1/3 of the population by then and owned less than 10% of it. the rest would go to an Arab state. But some argue that statistic can be a little misleading because much of the Jewish portion was the Negev desert. It was empty, dry, and mostly uninhabitable. The Arab state would have gotten most of the fertile land and towns, a decision made in part to avoid displacing large Arab populations. Jews saw the plan as a lifeline, a legal and moral foundation for the country they've dreamed of for a long time. Arabs saw it as a betrayal. It was their land and their majority, and now half of it was being handed over to people they saw as recent arrivals, backed by a colonial power. The UN vote triggered celebration in Jewish towns with dancing and singing, but in the Arab towns it triggered rage. The day after the resolution passed, civil war broke out between Arabs and Jews inside Palestine. For about 6 months, violence consumed the region. While British troops stood by, they were ready to leave. Arab militias blocked the road to Jerusalem, cutting off food and supplies to 100,000 Jews in the city. Jewish convoys were ambushed. Dozens of doctors and nurses were killed on their way to the Hadassah hospital. By spring, the Jewish forces regrouped under a unified command, launching what they called Plan D, an effort to secure the territory the UN had assigned them, plus some strategic areas beyond that. That plan remains one of the most...
And I don't know if y'all see in the chat. So Dutch brings up a great point. He said, stop calling them elites. What would you prefer I call them? He said to call them rats. Okay, I'll call them rats. Then what does that make us for getting manipulated by the rats? What does that make us? They're winning. We're losing. We need to understand that. Evil is winning right now. You look around at this world and you think good is winning? So instead of caring about the name, elites, and I understand names have power and all this other stuff, they're winning. You may not like the effort, the ways that they're going about it, but let's not act like we're not complicit in all that. We are complicit in a lot of this stuff that the quote unquote non-elites, I guess we'll call them the winners. We're complicit in a lot of the things that they're doing. They're rats. Okay, so what are we? What are we? That's the question that I have. What are we?
Most debated parts of the war. In April, Jewish paramilitaries attacked an Arab village near Jerusalem. Roughly 100 villagers were killed, including women and children. The massacre was condemned by Jewish leaders, but broadcast across the Arab world as proof of what lay ahead. Panic spread, and tens of thousands of Palestinians fled their home. Some from fear, others being pushed out by fighting or by direct expulsions. Shortly after, Jewish leadership declared the independent state of Israel. Within hours, 5 Arab armies, Egypt, Transjordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, invaded. The Arab states said they were coming to defend Palestine, but really they were probably also competing for it. The war seesawed for months, but Israel held its ground and over the next year pushed back on nearly every front. By the time a peace deal was signed in early 1949, Israel had expanded well beyond the UN's original borders, and they now controlled about 78% of the former mandatory Palestine. The rest, the West Bank and...
All right, real quick. All right, so total conspiracy theory ADD moment. All right. So this thought of reptiles has been coming up a lot, like this reptilian group of people. And I recently have been hearing that word come up a lot, and I haven't looked into it. But with Mama Lay writing that I've heard about reptiles, what if it is this? Like, we're the most advanced mammal group, right? What if there's also advanced reptilian groups? What if there's no. All right, let's keep going with the video. Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know. Nothing's off the table as far. It's hard to watch Men in Black and think that all these other movies come true. All these other movies. We all hear about how Hollywood shapes the future, and it lets us know exactly what's going to happen in advance. I'm just asking a question.
In Gaza, they were taken over by Jordan and Egypt. For the Arabs, the outcome was devastating. Roughly 700,000 of them, more than half of their population, fled or were expelled. Entire villages were emptied, and only about 150,000 Arabs remained within Israel's new borders. and they became the Arab citizens of the new state. That exodus was known as the Nakba, the catastrophe. But not as many people seem to remember that there was another exodus happening literally at the same time. Between 1948 and the early 1950s, Jews had a Nakba of their own. Roughly 800,000 Jews were forced out of Arab countries, many from places like Iraq, Yemen, and Egypt, where their families had lived for centuries. Most resettled in Israel, which then doubled in population in 3 years. Two groups of people lost their homes almost simultaneously. One side built a new nation. The other side was left stateless, scattered across refugee camps in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, and Syria. After the war, Jordan took over the West Bank and gave many Arabs citizenship. Egypt controlled Gaza but never offered any citizenship there. No Palestinian state emerged, and when the UN later called for the refugees' return or compensation, neither Israel nor the Arab states made that happen.
So I want to be very clear. This is why when we were talking the other day about the UN, the United Nations, they don't do anything. They make suggestions. They put pressure, but they can't actually do anything, or they don't do anything. So the UN with this Nakba, when Palestinians were forced off of their land, they were supposed to have the right to return home. They were supposed to either have that or get compensated for the land property that was given up, that they lived in, they owned. Some of them, I don't know whether it was just like the farmland, but I'm talking about the actual homes. The homes that they were living in, they had to just give them up. They were supposed to receive compensation and they were supposed to have the right to return home. They didn't. So, it's not just Israel. It sounds like, let me see, did he say that it was the other Arab nations as well?
Return or compensation. Neither Israel nor the Arab states made that happen. Most Arab states didn't let the displaced Palestinians relocate within their borders. I did a video about why, and so far, it's the most popular video I've ever made. So the 1948 war determined that a Jewish...
And I feel like I've heard different takes on this, because the first thing that comes to mind is, damn, like all these other Arab nations, you ain't even want to, where, like, I've heard this argument. It's like, nobody wanted the Palestinians. Don't just blame Israel. Nobody wanted them. But then I also have heard, I think, I can't even, where my mind goes, and I can't even verify this, but where my mind goes is, well, a lot of those Arab nations were saying that because they did not want, they thought that, no, you shouldn't be giving up land. You need to go back and get your land. You need to go get your home. And I don't know whether they were thinking, and I'm telling you, I don't really have clear thoughts on this, but this is where my mind goes. I don't know if they were thinking that just from a selfish standpoint, hey, we don't want y'all here. I don't know if they were thinking that from a standpoint, thinking about what Israel could potentially become or what it's doing now, where, hey, if we start giving up this land, if you don't fight for your state, then eventually they're going to come for ours. That would be a pretty logical, thought process, I would believe, especially when, what did Negative, or I think Negative said it earlier, all the land has been stolen. Like a lot of the borders that we see right now, a lot of it's been stolen. So therefore, if it's always been might is right, then if you start taking homes down the street, it's almost like when you see certain people start moving in the neighborhood and they're walking around trying to buy up homes, and certain people start selling, and then you like, oh, don't start selling, because then they're going, you get what I mean? So I don't know. But as he said earlier, he can't include all of the details in this video, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm bringing those things up that are kind of sparking my interest as he's talking.
It's the most popular video I've ever made. So the 1948 war determined that a Jewish state would exist, but what would happen to the Palestinians who had lost their land? Israelis saw the war as a matter of survival and independence. To Palestinians, it was dispossession. Either way, 1948 cemented the divide that defines the conflict to this day. Now, let me pull back and talk about the Palestinian identity for a minute, because it's changed a lot over the past century. Before 1948, Arabic-speaking Muslims and Christians who lived in Palestine, they didn't really think of themselves as a separate nation. Their sense of belonging was local. They were members of their city, or religious. They were Muslims, Christians, or Jewish. Under Ottoman rule, the area wasn't even an official province called Palestine. Most people saw themselves as Ottoman subjects, but gave their real loyalties to their family, their clan, and their hometown, rather than to a nation. Under British rule, the word Palestinian still didn't mean what it does today. Early on, it was geographic. Anyone living in the British Mandate could be called Palestinian. In fact, some of the best-known Palestinian institutions were actually Jewish, like the Palestine Post newspaper, which later became the Jerusalem Post, and the Palestinian Symphony Orchestra. Palestinian basically described where you lived. But newspapers, political committees, local leaders, they started using the term Palestinian to describe themselves as a distinct community within the Arab world, even though they remained Arab, just like you could be both French and European. Then, that Arab revolt against the British rule and Jewish immigration helped solidify their identity. Peasants from villages fought alongside urban militants, and the shared struggle gave birth to a more unified sense of a Palestinian people. Then came 1948, and the Nakba turned Palestinians literally into a far-flung group of people. The old landowning families and the village hierarchies collapsed. They were replaced by refugee camps and scattered groups abroad. And for 20 years, the Palestinian cause was folded into a larger Arab cause. Leaders like Egypt's President Nasser promised that all Arabs would unite and that one day they would liberate Palestine. They tried, and once again, made things worse. The war came when President Nasser kicked out UN peacekeepers from the Sinai, closed the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping, and gathered troops on Israel's border. Syria and Jordan joined in a military pact with Egypt, and Israel saw what was coming and struck first. It was the Six-Day War in 1967, and it changed everything. The result was devastating for the Arab side. Israel destroyed Egypt's air force while it sat on runways, and Israeli ground forces took huge amounts of land. When the ceasefire came, Israel controlled the Sinai, Gaza, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. Roughly 1 million Palestinians were then under Israeli military rule. In less than a week, Israel tripled its territory and created the occupation that defines the conflict today, although they didn't keep all that land. Israeli settlements started going up in occupied territories almost immediately. By the 1970s, what began as military outposts became permanent civilian communities. For Israelis, the occupation was about security. For Palestinians, the occupation was theft in slow motion. Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization became the political and symbolic home of Palestinian identity. And through the 70s, the PLO's armed struggle and global diplomacy made Palestinian a household word. The PLO staged hijackings and terrorist attacks against Israelis and Western targets. Another Palestinian...
Yeah, why are we still having wars? Like, why is anybody allowed to have a nuclear weapon? Isn't that common sense? Like, isn't this... Should anybody be able to have a nuclear weapon? And then I guess that can be a rabbit hole, because then you start going into, well, what weapons should and should not be allowed. But why is war allowed? We're the most advanced beings, allegedly, on this planet. And we're resorting to our most beastly nature in order to solve what? Is this just inevitable? And is it all just based on land? Like, I'm just trying, like, what is the justification in us having wars instead of, I don't know, football games against each other? And then if we lose, then, you know, you get to take our land or something like that. And obviously that's something that most people will laugh at, but what is the point? What is the point? Perhaps this is the greatest example of us seeing that evil is winning. What is the point of a war? Why are we even, what is the point of resolving a problem with war? Like, why is that something that we grow up and just naturally think like, oh yeah, of course there's wars. Like, what do you mean? Why? Doesn't it go against everything that we learn as a people when we're resolving problems in school, when we're... Doesn't it go against our commandments? We can rationalize having all of these wars based on this religious group, this religion, all these different things, but then we just completely ignore that it's one of the commandments. Yeah, thou shalt not kill. We just, okay, yeah, well, when it's for land, it's all good. Like, why are we accepting this way of life? Why are we accepting this? We're condoning this behavior. Dutch said, okay, we're not calling them elites anymore. We're calling them filth. We're calling them rats. Then what are we? I got no problem calling them all these names. What are we? We're the ones condoning it. We're the ones allowing it. We're the ones sitting back when it doesn't impact us or come to our doorstep. We just act like it doesn't even happen. It doesn't impact us emotionally or any other way. When we hear about somebody dying over, oh, somebody, all right, what's for lunch? Why are we allowing this? Perhaps this should be the first thing that we push back against our government, push back against the world for, oh, there's war crimes. War is the crime. Once war is justified, what is it? Once war is justified, what is it? It's okay. So it's okay to kill somebody on behalf of your country. It's okay to commit a genocide. It's okay to do all these different things, but it's not okay to sneak across a border. If you were God, let's say if you were having a conversation with God, I don't want to offend anybody. Let's say you're having a conversation with God. Do you think God would be more upset at the person that snuck into a club or snuck into another country? Or God would be more upset with somebody that killed somebody because their government, which we know is corrupt, and even if it wasn't corrupt, let's say that it was a righteous government, had you kill somebody else, take another life and violate their commandment? Just from that standpoint, which do you think, if Jesus was hanging out with me right now, sitting in this chair, and we were having a conversation about like, yo, what you think is like morally, like, I don't know if you can have a greater sin or morally worse. I don't know if that's how you look at stuff, but what you think is worse? You think it's worse for somebody to try to sneak in a country, may even be paying taxes, but they snuck in here? Or you think it's worse for me to go and kill somebody on behalf of the country because my country said that it was the right thing to do? Matter of fact, we're going to do it on behalf of Israel. It really doesn't even have anything to do with us, but, you know, Israel wants more land, so we rocking with them. So we got to go kill some Iranians, just like we killed, did our thing with Saddam in Iraq, a bunch of those other countries too. Like, yeah, that's just what you think is worse, Jesus? If we could, just from a common sense standpoint, why are we allowing this? We're rats, Dutch. We're filth. Perhaps we would do the same things that the elites would do if we were in their positions, because we condone it being in the position that we're in right now. We condone all this. Matter of fact, and there was a good clip that, matter of fact, I have a clip talking about this. Matter of fact, let's finish this video. There's only a minute left, because there's a video that Anna Kasparian put out about us condoning this. And a lot of people that don't like the migration or will complain about 10 million migrants coming in here. I'll complain about that as well, because we don't have the infrastructure. So I'm talking to myself as well. But we have to realize how we've been complicit in this. And she brought up an interesting angle that I never heard before. So let's get through the rest of this video, one more minute, and then we'll go to Anna's video, because I think I think y'all will be very interested in the point that she's making, just based on the conversation that we're having about this video. All right, keep it going.
Faction attacked Jewish athletes at the Munich Olympics, killing 9 of the athletes. This terrorism hardened Israel and a lot of American attitudes, and it made peace seem impossible. More cycles of armed resistance and terror attacks followed over the decades, as well as peace deals that have always looked promising and then faded away. There's still no Palestinian state. Israeli settlements have multiplied, and Gaza and the West Bank, and
that's an interesting point that you make. So Andy wrote, I hate war, but I guess it's all about perspective. I'm not a violent person, but I also would protect my family if needed. So it's all about degrees, I guess. And I guess the question is, this is why it's so easy and how they create the justifications. Because think about it from an Israeli standpoint. What did you just say? Protect my family. So we justify it when it's protecting our family. So what narrative does Israel have to create? This is protecting our family. We don't have the right to protect ourselves. We don't have the right to defend ourselves. We don't have the right to exist. That's how they base the argument, because we've gotten to the point where we justify going to extreme means in order to protect our family, not realizing that that's everybody's justification. So all you have to do is create one situation in the beginning of time. Just like when we hear a lot of these gangs, like if you look into like gang history in LA, like where certain gangs are beefing against each other, it started like 20, 30, 40 years ago with, oh, these two dudes just had an issue because one was dealing with the other's girl. And now 30, 40 years later, these gangs are still beefing over stuff that happened before they were even born. So what ends up happening is you have one situation happen where it's like, oh, this person justifies doing something in an extreme way to protect their family. Now it's protecting their family. Now they're able to justify. So it's just a back and forth until somebody says, hey, I'm not willing to go to certain extents. I have to figure out a different way to protect my family. Because that justification is going to be the one that just leads us in the direction that we're in right now. So I understand completely. Absolutely. You're going to go to whatever you will defend your family by any means necessary. So I guess perhaps in order to change the means, then we have to, I guess, address the necessary part. What is necessary? Hopefully we can figure out some other means to where this extreme stuff is not necessary. So it's the exact argument that it's the exact argument that a lot of nations give. Well, in order for me to protect myself, a lot of people will say that this is the issue with Russia and Ukraine. I got to protect my people. So therefore, I don't want these NATO countries around Russia because that's a threat to my people. So therefore, I'm going to go to war. Next thing you know, 1 million people are dead between Russia and Ukraine. And it's all about, this protecting this, When war is a valid justification, when killing is justified, we're always going to be in this position. We're always going to be in this position. And I believe I was reading some scripture in the Bible where it was talking about, I don't know the exact scripture, but it was talking about how God values very highly like a man that can walk away from conflict, or not necessarily just walk away from conflict, but people that can diffuse situations and not to de-escalate the situation. That's what God holds in high regards. I don't think that the majority of us walk around with that mindset, because we're all living in this system. We're all living in this culture that it's acceptable to commit violence when we feel threatened. So even though I can sit here and say like, I can understand that, I can see that perspective, I can. But I also understand and see the larger picture where this can ultimately lead to, and how then this will be considered an okay justification for Israel to do what they're doing because they're protecting their family. Palestine, you damn sure, is it justified for them to protect their family and the land that was taken from them and the people that are being killed? Upwards of it could be almost 100,000. So what measures should they go to protect their families? Because if we justify one, you can't justify the other. You can't, and this is what ends up happening. We try to label the Muslims as the Islamic jihadists. They just are suicide bombers. They're this and that. In their eyes, they're protecting their family. And perhaps they have more of let me just come out and say it. I think they have more of a defense as far as protecting their family than Israel. I'm just being real. You stole my land, bro. You kicked me off my land and you didn't give me $1 for it. What? Yeah, that's war. Now you got me living in this, what do they call it, the open air prisons and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to protect my family. Everybody justifies protecting their family. And then we end up debating on, well, to what extent should you protect? Do we want solutions, or do we, yeah, to what extent? Imagine if we shifted our mindset, and with the same energy that we have in our mind of protecting our family by any means necessary, what if we shifted it to say peace by any means necessary? Resolving conflict without war by any means necessary. I'd have to use my imagination. We don't have the answers, but when we're living in a society and a culture that pushes for the other and accepts that other, we will never force ourselves to figure out another solution. Because the other one, oh, that's working. That's the world that we're living in. Okay, cool. So I'm going to move in that way, rather than forcing myself to think outside the box and use my imagination to think of something else that may just be a common sense type of thing, but figuring out another way to go about resolving conflict.
Still divided. Was it thievery, or really a clash of two national movements with lots of shared history and trauma? Too many people want stories with simple victims and simple villains. I usually can't give that to you, and I certainly can't give that to you here. The world is too nuanced, and now you're among a very small percentage of people who actually have a handle on how this whole thing really began. You know, I never expected to do so many videos on the Mideast, but people seem to like them, and I certainly learned a lot in producing them. If you're interested in more, here's my playlist for the whole batch. Thanks so much for watching.
All right, hold on. I want to give me a second here, because I wanted to show this video. I thought I had it saved, but I don't. But I just was reminded of it. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I got to find this for y'all. Just because it's super relevant. Hold on. So what are y'all thoughts on that? Okay, here it is. I found it. Wasn't expecting to find it that fast. I was like, I don't think this is more of an Instagram thing. I thought it was more YouTube, but we are here. All right, take a look at this.
Western countries to hear me when I say this, okay? All the Western countries, United States, Europe, especially Europe, okay? I don't want to hear any whining about the Islamification of your country because of mass migration. As you aid and abet, or at best case scenario, just remain silent at what's happening in the Middle East because Israel wants to build their empire. Okay, the mass displacement that we've seen in the Middle East is the result of us going into countries, bombing countries, overthrowing, governments that Israel doesn't like. All of that stuff has led to mass migration of Muslims. You think they want to go to your stanky ass country? No, I think they would rather be in their homeland, but they can't live in their homeland because it's been bombed to smithereens. That's the reality of the situation. So if you don't want the Islamification of your country, how about you stop aiding and abetting Israel in their disgusting land grabs and empire building? How about that?
Yeah. Look, some people, of course, want to live in lovely European countries.
Look, Europe is awesome. I love Europe, but it makes me so angry that people are blind to what's happening, right? They think they're so high and mighty. They think they're so great. And it's like, oh my God, we're being invaded. No, you are aiding and abetting the destruction of these countries. Where do you think people are going to go? What do you think is happening with the Palestinian people right now?
So let me give you a quick example. So Israel's been agitating for a regime change in Iraq. They got us to do it, congratulations. And this is not speculation. This is all Israeli prime ministers, Netanyahu, Sharon, saying, we want America to attack Iraq. Iraq is our #1 enemy. Now they're saying Iran is our #1 enemy. We want you to attack Iran. And they have said this for different countries in the Middle East. And they've been trying to destabilize the Assad regime for a long time in Syria. Now the Assad regime was terrible and dictatorial, right? So it had plenty of its own problems, but they were looking to destabilize it so they can grab Western Syria. They destabilized it. They did grab Western Syria. They have Western Syria as we speak. But what was the consequence of that? It pushed that entire war and that destabilization pushed Syrians into many countries, other Middle Eastern countries, other European countries. My parents' hometown in Turkey was near the Syrian border. Now it is filled to the rim with Syrians.
That's what happens. People get displaced. So when you see the displacement of endless numbers of people from various Middle Eastern countries Ask yourself, why is this happening? Because I guarantee you, people aren't just deciding they're gonna leave everything they've known in their homeland and invade your country. That's not what's actually happening. If you want that to stop, okay, whether you're in Europe or whether you're in the United States, stop voting in favor of politicians that put Israel up on a pedestal and put their own people down, put their own people second. Because if you're gonna do the bidding of Israel, you're gonna keep getting mass displacement of people in that region of the world. That's the reality of the situation. Israel never suffers the consequences. Everyone else does.
What y'all think? I never looked at it from that angle. I never even looked at it from that angle. We keep trying to, we keep doing little slick stuff. And when I say we, I mean us and Israel. We keep doing little slick stuff to cause all this chaos in all these different places. Where do we think they're going to go? So maybe that's an overestimation of what's actually contributing to the problem, but it was just a perspective that I don't hear too often. And I want to play this. Hold on, dude. Is this the video? Why is it not showing this clip? Hold on. Let me show y'all this. I got to show y'all this video. Oh, it's on the screen now. I got it. All right. So this is a video. Shout out to Glay. Glay actually sent this one over. This is an interesting conversation with a rabbi that I really wanted to share because a lot of times, and I saw a negatives comment that I wanted to put up with this. A lot of times we'll lump everybody in the same category, right? Now, I'm not saying that there's a problem with that. I think that sometimes that's very valuable. I think that people need to be mature enough to when we talk about and say like, hey, we got a problem with black crime. I think people need to be mature enough instead of saying like, oh, well, it's not all black people. No, there's a problem. We have a problem with black culture. We have a problem with black people being overly sexualized. We have a problem with black people falling victim to getting caught on social programs. We have all these problems. Now, you could sit back and say, well, that doesn't impact me. That's wrong for you to say. No, it's an overall issue. It's dominant in the culture. It's dominant in the culture. So I think it's the same thing when it comes to Judaism. Now, even though people, just like Negative said, you're not allowed to say that Judaism is a supremacist religion. Whenever you identify yourself as the chosen people, that's a supremacist religion, in my opinion. I don't know how else to say that. That is the dominant culture. That is what we're seeing. That's what's on full display. You can say that's not all. Jewish people are not a monolith, and that's the state of Israel. Well, y'all need to address the loudest people in y'all room that are establishing the culture for y'all, just like I will call out the things that are dominant in black culture that I don't like. This is a problem. But I also want to identify and show that there's people that are within the Jewish community that are calling it out as well. And for us to also keep that perspective that even though we may hate what Israel's doing, even though we may hate the fact that Judaism, that the Zionists think that they're entitled to some land that God promised them and God decided that they were the chosen people, even though we hate these things, I hate that. I don't like that. As far as anybody thinking that they're better than somebody else, that they a supreme group of people, and I hate even more how they're using it to move about between Israel and Palestine. I hate that. That can cause us to have a perspective on an entire group of people. That's where we have to stop it. You can call out that, and you can call out that group and say, yo, why are you not standing up like against this type of stuff? This is your people. You need to address this. Just like when we talk about the good cops need to address the bad cops. You need to address it. Y'all repping the same thing. You need to address it because y'all ain't gonna listen to me. So take a look at this video and let me know what you think.
Zionism is anti-Semitism. They're the worst enemy of the Jews. They're breeding the Palestinian people. They're murdering them and Jews. We have to recognize, just like apartheid was ended, this must end. It's not a problem of a religious conflict.
Yes.
We always live together. Jews and Muslims always live
For
together.
sure. That me and you, we don't disagree on
right.
that.
And this is the
But-
Zionists, by the way. They made a movement, but not by religious
and they are
people. They're
secular
hypocrites.
and somehow call themselves Jewish.
And, right. They,
Yes.
say they don't believe in God, but God gave them the land, as you slowly say.
One last thing. These synagogues in the U.S. and the U.K. that are selling land in Gaza, can Jews go into those synagogues
I was
and
posted
stop?
last week in Park Avenue Synagogue. It was in all the news. We were standing outside demonstrating against them.
But why not inside the synagogue?
don't-
Why not inside?
We won't even go into those synagogues because they're a lot of them are Zionists. They have Israeli flags. We don't go into a synagogue that has an Israeli flag.
But if you don't challenge these things physically, what is going to happen?
We do challenge. We demonstrate constantly. We call out. We put out advertisements against them in the papers. We do what is our capability to do, and above that, we know that the Almighty, and we urge everybody to pray that He should bring about a speedy and peaceful dismantlement of that Zionist state. We hope it will be peaceful, but we are standing out all together with the Palestinians day and night for 77 years and more. So,
in this moment of genocide,
yes.
And you come from the U.S. You know there was a John Brown that carried arms against slavery and caused the Civil War in the United States. Even if it's not you as religious Jews that are pacifist, shouldn't we expect that there should be a Jewish John Brown right now today?
Again, I have to tell you, when you mentioned the civil rights movement against many Jews, as you know, most probably you know, were murdered.
So there was Jews that were martyred for civil rights in the U.S.
Again,
but there was no Jews yet martyred for rights in Palestine.
Again, first of all, that is not so. We have many Jews who were murdered by the Zionists, were murdered in Palestine by our demonstrations. We have a list of rabbis who are, the chief rabbi was almost assassinated. All of our rabbis have been beaten, arrested. So don't say that they were not murdered when we have lists of rabbis. The head of Neturei Karta had a hernia. He went into the hospital, and a few hours they said he's dead. We do go out. Of course, it's a whole cause. It's not only the Palestinians, it's the Jews and the Palestinians that are suffering together from this evil shaitan called Zionism. Zionism is anti-Semitic.
I got goosebumps watching this. Like, I got goosebumps watching this because it's a good man. It's just a good human being. This is a good man. This is the type of stuff that should give us hope. And even though this guy was trying to push him, and I understood where he was going, I understood exactly where he was going. And the rabbi had a pretty good response back. Like, we are putting our lives on the line. So this is good. This is an example of good cops policing bad cops, in my opinion. I think that the entire concept around like this forced Zionism, I have issues with. Like that if you don't believe in Zionism, that you're an anti-Semite. And if y'all think I'm exaggerating when I say it just like that, take a look at this video. Hold on. I have this video for you guys to check out. Oop, got it saved. Take a look at this if you think I'm exaggerating before we got to get up out of here. All right. This is the longer one. I'm gonna see if I can find y'all the shorter one in the meantime, but hold on.
Mr. Frankel, this is for you. You described very painful experiences at UCLA, and I take that very serious. At the same time, many of the students who I've spoken to personally who created those encampments say that they were protesting the killing of tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians in Gaza and their university's financial ties to that war. So I need to ask you, in a country built on religious liberty in the First Amendment, do you believe someone can stand firmly against anti-Semitism, including what you experienced, and at the same time condemn the mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza, or reject political Zionism, or not support the political state of Israel? Or do you believe that speaking out about what many Americans view as genocide in Gaza should be treated as anti-Semitic? Because in my view, the United States cannot and must not make loyalty to a particular theology about Israel a litmus test for protected speech or moral legitimacy.
Charlie Kirk said that Jew hate is brain rot. Some people don't have brains. I'm not going to assist them in setting a double standard for the Israeli government and these Jewish people as they fight to defend themselves. These were students calling for intifada within days after October 7th, before Israel had even entered Gaza. So it's not about them and their using Palestinian civilian death, which is horrendous and horrible. They're using it as a prop, and it doesn't matter. My religious beliefs are violated. You don't get to block me because I'm Zionist and a Jew. You want to protest Israel? Great, 100% go ahead and do it. But the university let them wear masks, even though there's a mask ban. They violated all time, place, and manner restrictions, amplified sounds. It went on for years. They kept doing this time after time again. And that's what the judge saw and said, that's not okay. They can protest, they can't block Jews, and you can't assist them in doing it.
I'm really grateful that we're having this discussion because I think this is a topic that is really affecting so many Americans. Rabbi Shapiro, he's based in New York. I invited him here today, but he's not here today. He says, and I would love your opinion on this, American Jews are increasingly treated as less fully American, our loyalty questioned, our belonging made conditional because Zionist ideology falsely claims Israel is the nation state of Jews everywhere and that every Jew is nationally tied to it. He says, this framing is anti-Semitic at its core. It strips us of our identity as Americans, recasts us as foreigners in our own country, and arms anti-Semites with accusations of divided loyalties and collective guilt for actions we neither chose nor control. No other foreign country does this. No sovereign state claims to politically represent an entire worldwide group defined by religion or heritage and bind its members to its deeds. Yet Jews alone bear this unique, unjust burden. That dangerous lie must be rejected openly and firmly. The remedy is clear: civic education that teaches unconditional American belonging through citizenship alone, not ethnicity, heritage, or any fabricated foreign tie. We are Americans, full stop, and we reject any doctrine that treats us otherwise. Would you say that statement is anti-Semitic?
What I'll say is that Natan Sharansky says there's three things that you shouldn't do with Israel. You shouldn't delegitimize it, you shouldn't demonize it, and you shouldn't apply a double standard. You can abide by those three things, you're not anti-Semitic.
So by not being a Zionist, does that make you an anti-Semite?
I don't think you need to be a Zionist to support a country that defends itself and is free and religious in a hostile neighborhood.
So is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism?
One second, Carrie.
Yes.
It is? It is?
Sorry. Yes.
This man just said that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. This is why Larry Ellison, who did he just put in? Was it his son or no? Somebody, the guy that took over, that works with, owns Oracle, and they just purchased TikTok, and they're making it hate speech to use Zionist in a way that's not complimentary. They're making it hate speech. This is when you know it's a cultural thing. And shout out to Critical. I didn't even realize that this was, because you put your name on it. Shout out to Critical. God's chosen is another way of saying master race. I agree. And you can see it coming out of this man's pores. And I'm going to use this word, not to no, I would have, before Dutch, we're changing the words, I would have used elitism. But this is the arrogance that is coming, that has been established by everybody else in the world accepting Jewish people as being God's chosen people, or being accepting, being complicit, whatever it is that you want to use to describe it. This man just said that if you're against Zionism, then you're anti-Semitic. We're gonna find out very soon this claim that we've always heard people say, like Kanye, Jews run the media and all this. We're getting ready to. It's already happened in a lot of ways, but I think it's only going to get more extreme because people are not buying into this. People are calling this stuff out. People are, and she's let me just play the video. Y'all get, I want y'all to hear from her.
To take that point for a second.
Let me back up. I didn't want to step over that answer. I didn't know you were still, both of you still talking. So
Just to be clear, is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism?
Yes.
It is under IHRA?
Rabbi, you're up next.
You're not
That
sure?
definition,
So
but
what is the
I
definition?
would love to speak to that. Undoubtedly, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and undoubtedly, and one does not have to support the specific policies of the government of Israel, but to not support the right of Israel to exist, which is what anti-Zionists do, while not taking that same stand to the 28 Muslim countries and 13 Christian countries in this world, is a double standard, is hypocrisy, and is absolutely anti-Semitism.
I'm going to call bullshit on everything that he just said. Nobody is sitting here saying that there shouldn't be allowed to be a Jewish state. What we're saying is the means that you went and took it. That's like somebody saying, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to have sex is the same thing. Well, if I'm allowed to have sex, then I should be allowed to grape somebody. It's a totally different argument. He's saying that, oh, well, if you believe that, well, there's Muslim states that exist, so why shouldn't there be a Jewish state that exists? Bro, that's not what people are addressing. It's addressing the way you went about stealing the land to create your state. Like, what are we talking about? And people clapping for it.
I think it's also
a couple
important that
people.
we not make Islamophobic remarks while we're here today. I would appreciate that.
I just want to
Since
say,
this is a religious liberty hearing.
God forbid was anything like that said. But if the Jewish people are the only people that you deny the right to have its own state, that is absolutely a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
Let me call bullshit again, because we act like there's like 3 religions in the world or 4 religions, because those are the main ones. Like, we act as if there's plenty of other spiritualities that are out here that people may identify as religions. So do they have, where are their states? Like, what it's just, I don't even need to get frustrated because people are seeing it. And it's almost like, let people continue to talk. This is why free speech can be the most, let people talk. They're telling you exactly who they are and what they stand for.
Well, as you know, I'm a Catholic, and Catholics do not embrace Zionism, just so you know. So are all Catholics anti-Semites, according to you?
As I said, anti-Zionism, by denying the right of the Jews to have their own state while not saying the same for any other peoples, that is a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
So just to be clear, are Catholics anti-Semites?
Carrie, excuse me. I'm going to interrupt the discussion. Our committee is focused on religious liberty taken from all people, whether it be Muslims, Jews,
let him answer.
Christians, Sikhs. We've had all those witnesses here. This is not a commission on defining religions or calling out any theology, or this is not the commission for that.
Right, but we're talking about a foreign nation, so I want to be clear on what the definition of anti-Semitism is. If I don't support the political state of Israel, am I an anti-Semite? Yes or no?
They already answered. Asked
Yes.
and answered.
According to you on the record, yes? If I don't support the political state of Israel?
I don't personally label people, but what I'm saying is, if somebody states if somebody says they're an anti-Zionist, they are saying about themselves that they have a double standard and hypocrisy, and they're taking anti-Semitic positions.
Okay. Carrie, you feel like you have your questions in?
I don't agree with that, because as a Catholic, I don't agree that the new modern state of Israel has any biblical prophecy meaning at all. So that's my stance, and I'm Catholic.
Yeah. Dr. Ben.
First of all, I want to thank you all for your...
All right, we're going to leave it there. Yeah. Hate to rush into the breathing, but we're going to leave that there, and then we're going to get into the most important part of the show. Don't leave. Don't leave. All right, you're not allowed to leave. We're getting into the most important part, our breath work. So if you do leave, Make sure that you like, at least help the algorithm on your way out. But this is the most important part of the show. We do our new box breathing technique. It's called a 4-7-8 breathing technique for anxiety. So is that 4 seconds in, 7-second hold? I don't know exactly what it is. Well, we're going to do the breathing exercise, and don't worry, you don't have to count. All you have to do is look at the dot or listen for the sound, and then you'll be able to follow. We're going to start with an inhale. And while we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're being very intentional with inhaling positive energy, uplifting energy, hopeful energy, whatever it is that you want to describe it as, just something that's going to have you waking up, seeing the glass half full rather than half empty. All right. And then on the exhale, we're going to make sure that we're exhaling all the limiting negative energy. All right. So we're going to start. It already heard the bell sound to initiate the inhale. So when I press the start button, you start your inhale. If you are in a safe place, you can close your eyes, just follow the sound, and we shall go from there. I wish y'all an amazing breath work experience. All right, we're going to start with our inhale. Ready, begin. Our last one, so we're going to get rid of that last remaining bit of negative energy. Let it out. All right. Y'all know what we come here to do. Elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, raising our standards to become the best leaders and followers that we can become, because we got to play whatever role is necessary to win. That's the role that we're playing. No role is bigger than the other. Just making sure that we maximize our potential in whatever role that is. That's what's going to be most important. Strength and honor, onward and upward. Y'all know what I mean when I say get to that bag. For those that don't, I'm referring to making sure that we stay focused on being as efficient as possible as we're on this trajectory, living in our purpose, striving for purposeful abundance. And we want to be very clear and intentional about the impact that we're going to make on this world that we like to call our personal legend. You got to figure out what's in your bag. The things that I focus on: peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and in everything we do, integrity. Got to have that balance on there with a sprinkle of perspective. And perhaps we should lead with the perspective, because that usually sets the tone on how we see things. So let me see. All right. Andy said, everyone have a great day. It's up to you to make it a good one. See y'all tomorrow morning. Good show. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate y'all, man. Uluwe, appreciate that negative. Uluwe, negative. Negative. What's up, man? Since Dutch it reminded us how important names are, you going to change your name to Positive? Tomorrow is your name going to be on here, Positive? See, no, I'm just joking. I'm just messing with you. Uluwe, he said, positive energy is independence from the parasitic negativity they want us sucked into. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. All right, so I got to get out of here. Do me a favor, hit the like button on your way out. Unk and Finn are going to give us our last words. One love, everyone. Enjoy the Olympics. Yeah, it's happened with some of these Winter Olympics. I used to enjoy the Winter Olympics a lot, actually, especially the bobsledding and all that. There's a few other things that I like. I got to tap back in. What we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. what we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. That's from Tim Ferriss. And I'll also add on to that. And that's usually the thing that when we say what we most need to do in order to climb that next level that we're aspiring to get to. So on that note, shout out to y'all. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, 8 a.m.